Hello, IT News Africa, and to all the attendees. Thank you very much for having me here today. My name's Tim Mitchell, the Head of Digital Transformation at Flux Labs, and I'll be talking to you today about the platform economy, something that I'm personally passionate about. And before we jump right into it, there's something that I want to check with all of you. So just to check if you can all hear me, I see there's a...
Yeah, we can hear you and we can see your presentation.
Thank you very much, Nastasia. So quick question to everyone in the audience. I'm willing to bet that in the past 24 hours, most of you have either scrolled through a newsfeed, typed something into a search bar, or made a transaction online. And if that's the case, then you have contributed to the platform economy. And this is a market that McKinsey and Company predicts will reach $60 trillion by 2025, representing more than 30% of the world's total economic activity. However, only 3% of companies across the globe have adopted a successful platform strategy. And this leaves plenty of room for winners and losers in this platform economy. So today, what I'll be talking to you about is how to harness the power of platform business economics to drive the future of the digital landscape. And hopefully we can see more of our businesses from Africa join that 3% of winners to become one of the capitalizing businesses in the $60 trillion market. So we'll start our journey with a little bit of history. And I'm going to take you all the way back to 1100 BC, where we find the evidence of one of the world's first ever platform businesses. Now, this is during the Shang Dynasty era of China, where wealthy Chinese men and women made use of a classifieds matchmaking service that was literally carved into stone. And this service would help them to find suitable marriage candidates for the future. So you can think of it a little bit like an ancient Chinese Tinder. But if that's what platform businesses looked like in the 1100s, then things are starting to look a little bit different in modern day. And you might recognize this company on the right-hand side, WeChat. It's one of these unstoppable super apps that has completely changed the way in which the Chinese population engages, interacts, transacts, invests, gets access to microservices, and even finds love through competitor services to Tinder. So to understand how we move from those ancient matchmaking services to modern day super apps, it's important to have a look at what's taken place in the global economy over the past 20 or so years. So on the screen, what you'll see right now is the world's most valuable companies by market cap. And we start to see a shift as we move along speedily from 20 years ago to modern day, where we saw the likes of energy players, retail, banking, and healthcare taking the top spots, to a complete shift of the economy where we have these digital technology giants taking center stage. And these aren't just any tech companies, but in actual fact, as of today, 8 out of 10 of the world's most valuable companies are platform businesses. They all make use of platform economics and help to drive hyperscale growth in their businesses, making them some of the world's most valuable companies. So to understand how they got there, it's important for us to take a quick look at what is the definition of a platform business. And to me, there are 5 key tenets that we need to look at. First of all, platform businesses are a multi-sided market. This means that they're an intermediary between producers and consumers, and they match supply and demand for participants who would otherwise find it difficult to find each other and do business together. In this case, you could think of a platform like Amazon that's able to connect buyers and sellers around the world in their global e-commerce marketplace. Second of all, platform businesses make use of a network effect. This makes them highly scalable and capable of viral growth. And there's actually a law that exists called Metcalfe's law, which defines the value of a network as being proportional to the square of the number of nodes or participants within that network. And this means that it rises exponentially in value with each new user that is added. So you can think of a platform like TikTok, which would be relatively useless with only one user. But if you have a billion Gen Z users all singing, dancing, and remixing each other, then it makes for quite a powerful platform. Number 3 is that platform businesses provide modular offerings. Now, these are componentized, hyper-personal offerings that meet consumers on their own terms. You can think of how my personal podcast and song recommendations on Spotify probably look a little bit different to yours based on personal individual taste that's captured by a modular recommendation engine. Fourth of all, and really importantly, is that platform businesses make use of platform economics. This is the ability to collect annuity subscription revenue or a percentage of each and every transaction that takes place on a platform. What's also interesting here is that platform businesses have a variable cost base, and this makes it incredibly cheap and easy for them to scale up and down their operations in response to demand fluctuations in the market. So this probably helps to explain why one of the world's biggest car rental companies, Hertz, went bankrupt during the pandemic, while we have a platform business like Uber that was quite easily able to scale down their operations without taking a knock on asset utilization, since they don't physically own the actual vehicles on the road. And fifth and finally, our platform businesses make use of foundational technology. So this means that they're constructed on a foundational stack of exponential tech like cloud, analytics, artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotic process automation, Internet of Things, blockchain, and many more. And a great example that we use almost every day is Google in this case, how they make use of their proprietary search algorithms, their cloud hosting, and data-driven offerings. So this definition starts to make a lot more sense if we see it live in action in a practical example. So I always like to use the analogy of Lego when describing a platform business. And on the left-hand side, we have our consumers. That's me, you, and the network effects of the general public. On the right-hand side, we have our producers. These are developers, merchants, advertisers, retailers, and any third party who's able to leverage the platform. In the middle, of course, we have the most important part, which is our actual platform. And I often like to think back to my childhood years, those foundational blocks where you'd build the rest of your Lego pieces serves as a bit of a platform analogy in this case. And it's a multi-sided marketplace that enables the creation, trade, and demand matching of microservices between our producers and our consumers. So the last thing about a platform business that makes it really powerful is that there's this inherent underlying ecosystem. These are third-party platform participants who are able to leverage APIs, data, algorithms, insights, dashboards, interfaces, apps, microservices, you name it, to enrich the platform experience for the producers and the consumers. So if we take a quick walkthrough, and we take me on the left-hand side there, I'm a tech-savvy, pet-fanatic customer. I need to find dog food for my pet, so I hop online to Amazon, an online retail platform, and I find a retailer, Royal Canine, who offers me exactly the type of pet food that I need. So what I do is find that listed product offer, and I trigger a transaction. I pay money into the platform that goes through to Royal Canine, Amazon obviously keeping their share of that transaction. And in doing so, as a consumer, I'm generating a whole stack of data. So that customer data is something that Amazon is able to expose to their ecosystem of third-party advertisers. And in this case, let's say, for example, a company called Fitbark picks up my profile. Now, they're a wearable pet fitness tracker, and because that's exactly the type of thing that I know my pet will like, they sent me a personalized ad offer. I'm happy to go ahead with it, so I trigger another transaction, generate even more customer data, and so we enrich the platform experience for our consumers and producers, while the platform itself is creating and capturing value at the same time. So now that we understand the mechanics of a platform business, let's get into some of the nitty-gritty on the actual business models that these platform businesses use. So I've created a bit of a framework inspired by the work of Scott Galloway and Michael Cusimano. And we look at two different critical choices that platform businesses need to make when creating their business model. Number one is, do they charge the customer or sell the customer's data to third parties? And number two, do they open up to an ecosystem of producers and consumers, or do they remain closed, offering a specific niche offering? So running from left to right, we have what I like to call the red platforms versus the blue platforms. The red ones are the ones where we say, well, if you're not paying for the product, then you are the product, because that platform is most likely harvesting your data and selling it on to third parties to monetize their platform for what seems like a free experience for the user. On the other end of the spectrum, we have our blue platforms. And this is where the user pays full price for their product or their offering with relative assurance that their data will be used for the purpose of enriching their experience rather than being harvested and sold on to third parties. Running from bottom to top, we then have the offering. And this goes from the extreme of a singular standalone offering from limited providers all the way to an ecosystem, which is a broad network of offerings from a number of different producers and consumers. And what you'll start to see over here is that we're creating a bit of a grid. And inside this grid, each of the quadrants have a very different type of platform business that starts to emerge. So bottom left, the types of platform businesses that I unfortunately do not like. These are what I refer to as the abominable anti-heroes, who typically provide a limited set of utility to the customer, but harvest their data to be sold on to third-party advertisers. And you'll see the likes of TikTok, Pinterest, Instagram, Snapchat, and Twitter in this case. Moving upwards slightly, we now open up to an ecosystem, a broader set of utility for the customer, yet we're still harvesting their data and selling it on to third parties. And in this quadrant, you'll start to see the likes of Facebook and the alphabet staple of Google, Android, and YouTube. Things change a little bit when we shift over to the blue side. And this first quadrant I call the antisocial allies. That's because they provide a very specific niche offering that doesn't necessarily integrate well with other service providers. And these are the likes of Airbnb, Spotify, Uber, Medium, Netflix, and Tinder. But for me, the holy grail of platform businesses and where I believe the most sustainable space to play is in the top right quadrant, what I like to call the honorable heroes. And this is where you provide a breadth and depth of offerings to the customer, high utility through an ecosystem of producers and consumers, yet you also protect their data. And you provide them with the assurance that their data will be used only to enrich their experience rather than being sold on. And you'll start to see some familiar names over here, like Microsoft, Amazon, WeChat, Alibaba, and Apple. One last note that I should mention on this framework is that a number of these platform businesses tend to adopt a hybrid model. And this means that they shift between red and blue, depending on the level of utility that they provide to the customer. You can think of an example like YouTube, where, sure, you could go ahead for the free version of YouTube and get bombarded by adverts before, during, and after your videos, or you can sign up for the premium service, YouTube Red, where users pay that premium to have an ad-free video streaming experience. So since this is IT News Africa Digital Forum, we're probably wondering what this landscape looks like in an African context. And I purposely haven't used company logos because I know that a few of my clients and colleagues are in the audience. But at an aggregated level, these are the types of players that we're starting to see spread across the platform business model framework. So we see a spread of our media companies, online classifieds, even our e-commerce players on the red side, with a spread of insurers, banks, and microservice marketplaces, the likes of Sweep South, as an example, in the blue side. But what inherently lacks from this framework, in my view, is anyone who's playing in the top right quadrant, the honorable hero zone, which leaves a massive gap in the African context for the next platform hero. And over time, I believe we'll start seeing a bit of a race to the middle to see which of these future platforms can adopt this space to provide maximum utility to the customer through an ecosystem, yet still protecting their data and adopting a blue business model. And if you had to ask me my guess on how this might shape up in the future, I'd strongly recommend keeping your eyes on the likes of Nedbank's Avo platform, the Vodacom VodaPay platform, as well as Discovery Vitality, as examples of platforms that are starting to increase their utility and use customer data to enrich the experience rather than harvesting and selling it on to third parties. So as we wrap up, I want to leave you with something that helps you to think about how you can platformatize your business. There's some great examples out there in the world that I often like to refer to, and these are some of the lessons that I've noted to be common amongst the winners in the platform space. So first of all, you need to envision the future state. So have it clear in your mind what it is that you would like your platform to achieve and what goal you want to set for yourself in the future. And there's a great technique called forward back thinking to align your vision to the future, what it is you would like to be famous for, and then work backwards to the detail about how you get there, almost like a gap analysis. And a great book that I've really enjoyed on this topic is called Lead from the Future by Mark Johnson, which I'd recommend checking out if you'd like to understand more about forward back thinking. The second takeaway here is to find the job to be done. At the end of the day, we don't just create platforms for the sake of it, but we create them to solve very specific consumer and producer challenges. So the theme of customer centricity becomes core to the creation of a platform. And a great book on this topic around customer centricity is called Competing Against Luck by the late Clayton Christensen from Harvard Business School, which goes into a lot of detail about how to engage with that customer's job to be done and solve an actual real problem in creating a new business. Thirdly, you need to make a decision on what type of platform entry mechanism you take. Are you going to build your own platform? Are you going to acquire and buy a platform through an existing platform player? Or are you going to leverage and belong to an existing platform that already exists in the market? So this build, buy, or belong conundrum is a big question that many platform businesses need to face. And a book that goes into a lot of detail about this and many other topics is some essential reading on business, on platform businesses called The Business of Platforms by Michael Kusimana. The fourth one here is that you need to decide how to formulate your business model. So for this one, you can think back to our discussion on red and blue business models, and you need to decide who's going to pay for your platform and with what currency. Will it be money, data, content, ideas, or some other form of currency that we're yet to understand and experience? Great book there is Post-Corona by Scott Galloway that looks at many of the big four, Google, Apple, Microsoft, Facebook, and how they've had to adapt with these challenges. And fifth and finally, parting thought for the day is that you need to build your platform business to scale exponentially. So you need to leverage exponential organization traits and enablers that help you to promote rapid growth. And this is where we see a lot of exponential technology discussions come into play. But I must remind you that technology is just the enabler in this case. So you need to be clear on the first 4 steps before you decide what those exponential enablers are. And once you get there and you have a clear picture, you can figure out how to do it better, faster, and smarter. So that's all we have time for today on the topic of platform businesses. So thank you very much, IT News Africa, and all the attendees, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.